the channel, Aqua. I'm Josh, as you know, and this is, I always get this wrong on StreamYard. This is Sam from Parkers Reef.
Hey yeah, Sam from Parkers Reef on that side, yeah.
I love it. I didn't notice that just before. In case you can't tell from his name and the background, Sam looks after, well, has an amazing 6 foot, is it? Reef tank.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I'm just going to bring this up on YouTube so that I can make sure we're not lagging and everything.
Sure, man.
Here we go, live now. Mute everything.
Sure, man. Yep, I can hear.
There we go. Done. And hello, everyone. So who have we got here? Let's say, hey, Chewy, Aquariums Down Under. I think Aquariums Down Under is a big fan of yours. He's from Perth, and he was on a series we did called Fish Tubers Down Under. It was, I think, episode 6, and he's got some really cool fish and a really cool reef tank.
Cool, nice one.
So Prawnalite, Dr. Black 66, the Zen Ginger. How are you all? Thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you hit the smash the like button while you're here. But basically, what we've done, or what we're wanting to do, is as an extension to Fish Tubers Down Under, I thought it'd be a really good idea to meet some of the other Australian fish keepers, not only YouTubers, although it's a bonus that Sam is a YouTuber as well, but just learn a little bit more about the industry down under and just the people that are involved in it. So I've been watching Sam from afar. We've never really chatted before. This is the first time we've had a chat. So
it's the first time we've met, yeah.
That might be why I'm fumbling around going, I don't know this guy. Does he think I'm an idiot? But I did want to kind of, I suppose I'll give you a little bit of a backstory that I started my channel about a year ago, or just over, and I made some videos. I only keep freshwater fish. I do want to keep saltwater one day. And yeah, I found it very, very hard to get new subscribers, to find an audience to share with, and like-minded people. So eventually, probably at the start of this year, I came across the Fish Fam. Are you aware of the Fish Fam?
I can't say I am. I'm embarrassed to say, but I will definitely follow it up after this.
Well, pretty much every person in this chat right now is part of the Fish Fam. Hey, Perth Cichlids as well. Sorry, I didn't want to miss you. And anyway, the Fish Fam, they have pretty much sort of a program of live streamers from, Monday to Sunday. People have their own designated spots where they'll jump on and talk about fish. They'll talk about different things, and it's worldwide. So there's a lot of Americans and Canadians. There's a couple Europeans, and at that stage, there's only a couple Aussies. And the Aussie sector has sort of grown. I mean, every sector has grown. And that's how, I suppose, that sort of inspired me to keep going with it. But I had a feeling that, yes, you come from a different background with your channel, and that's what I wanted to learn about today.
Yeah, had a pretty different path. I must admit, I never intended on being a YouTuber. Basically, I've been keeping reef tanks now for 6.5, coming up to 7 years. And there was a few things that I just did a little bit differently, mostly around sort of electronics and gizmos and things that I'd make myself. And then when I was trying to explain them to people, I just found it was so much easier to take a video of something and show them the video. And after a little while, I got sick of taking a video and then sending it, and then a week later, someone else would ask me the same question, so I'd take a video again and send it. So I'm like, I'm going to put this on YouTube, and then I can just send a link.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I may as well start adding a bit of commentary to these things, and then it kind of just snowballed from there. People started commenting and showing a bit of interest, and then I realized that some of the stuff that I was fortunate enough to be doing in the reef aquarium industry, people were interested in. So I thought, well, I might as well take a phone camera along and record it and share it with the world. So yeah, before you know it, we're up to, I think we're about 3,500 subscribers now. A video that I dropped a week and a half ago is just gone over 17,000 views. So like things are going pretty good. It's crazy to think how quickly it's happened.
I know. I was actually watching that video you're talking about. So the 17,000 view video that's the tank behind you, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the star of the show. I'm just the guy that sits in front talking about it. But, that video was because I got accused of not showing my own tanks enough. I kept on interviewing other people and seeing their tanks, and because I'm sure it's no different in the freshwater scene. You kind of take your own tank a little bit for granted, and you're always interested in what other people are doing, and you see something different, you get really excited. So I personally get excited about other people's tanks more than mine. So I didn't see any interest in sharing my tank. But then when I applied that same lens, I guess, to the theory, that made me realize that other people would be very interested in my tank. So I did a 45-minute long video on that tank, and yeah, it went crazy.
That's right. I'm actually just posting a link to the video we're talking about. So anyone that hasn't met Sam before, jump on, subscribe, and yeah, it is a 45-minute video, so maybe just pause it at the start and then jump back and watch us for a bit, and then you can watch it after. But I was actually watching it just before because I did see it pop up, and you post a lot of videos as far as like you're really consistent with bringing them out.
Yeah.
How many videos a week do you do?
Yeah, consistent's probably the wrong word. I wouldn't say I'm consistent with it at all. I release a video as soon as it's in my hands, basically. I tend not to sit on them too long, so when I'm on holidays, I may be releasing like 3 videos a day, but then other times I might go like 2-3 weeks between videos. But as a general rule of thumb, I'm trying to release 1 or 2 a week. I couldn't even tell you how long I've been doing it for now, but I think last time I had a look, I was over 230 videos. So they snowball pretty quickly.
And sorry, if you've already said it, I've missed it. How long? When did you start the channel?
I'm not actually sure because of that that nature of that. When I started the channel, it wasn't. Ironically, if you ever look at the URL of my channel, it's Parker Drag Racing, and that's because I used to do drag racing well before I even kept aquarium stuff. And back then, media storage and stuff was a bit weird. Like I wasn't going to burn a DVD of TV footage I had or anything like that. So I put the video on YouTube just so that I could access it again myself. And so the actual channel, I guess, has probably been around for maybe 7 or 8 years, but it really only started getting subscribes maybe 3 years ago.
Yep, I'm going to say March 30th, 2008, but that's just a guess.
It's homework.
I just want to say, hey, Daniel Keeping Fish is from England, the other side of the world. I did a funny video with Daniel. I sent him some Vegemite to taste for the first time, and he had a hilarious response to that, which was great. Monica, how are you? Monica's just received some Vegemite too, so she's going to try that soon. Rob Bull, another Aussie fish tuber. Have I missed someone? I feel like I have. Kiwi Mamo, how are you? And Michael Thornley, hello, how are you? Have you ever had freshwater fish?
Yeah, that's a funny part. Most people in reef keeping have had a journey through. I wouldn't say normally when people get into reef keeping, they've normally had freshwater tanks. I wouldn't say they've really gone all out on freshwater tanks. They sort of start off with freshwater tanks maybe when they're a bit younger, or they only sort of just get their, excuse the pun, but they get their feet wet with it, I guess. And then they'll move on to saltwater tanks. And then in the last couple of years, I've seen a lot of people that have got saltwater tanks, and I can't exclude myself. I haven't got one yet, but I'm about that close, getting into a planted freshwater tank, just because when you go to aquariums, you see them. And they're just pretty cool looking, and they look like a lot of the, as opposed to a good portion of freshwater tanks, the concepts and theories behind keeping freshwater tanks and marine tanks are often almost opposites. They're fairly different, but with planted tanks, there's a lot of similarities there in the elements and the CO2 and the trimming and stuff you got to do. So it feels like it's a nice little segue into freshwater tanks. But personally, the only freshwater tank I've ever had was a 9-liter beta tank that I had for like maybe about 2 months before my wife and I went, this is pretty cool, let's get into fish keeping. And then we went to an aquarium and we saw saltwater fish, and we're like, yeah, mind blown, we're going to go all out, because I tend to go all out in these things. I had no idea what I was getting into, but so we went technically not, but realistically straight into saltwater from there. I'm sure your viewers, my viewers, and no one considers a 9-litre tank anything really that serious, particularly only for a couple of months. So I just say I went straight into salt.
Yep. Does your wife regret saying, "Hey, let's get something bigger"?
No. My wife actually, obviously I married her. She married me. She's an absolute keeper. But it's often a joke when, like, the last couple of weeks, I've had people over. They come down just for lunch, just have a look at the tanks and chat and whatnot, and they're always sort of like, "Oh, you're talking about a tank upgrade? Do we have to be quiet around your wife or anything?" And I'm like, "No, man, she's all in. She's keen on this. Whilst she doesn't. It definitely is my tank, or the 7 tanks we've got running in the house right now. It's definitely mine, as you know. They're my responsibility, but my wife's absolutely behind them, and she's very supportive. And if I said tomorrow that I want to do a 10,000-litre tank, she'd be like, "Cool, where are we going to put it?" Thankfully, I've got a little bit of self-control. Otherwise, yeah, we would have a 10,000-litre tank in here.
You'd be living in an aquarium. How many tanks do you have?
Yeah, so at the moment I've got 7 tanks.
Yep.
Most of them are fairly small, apart from the guy behind me. He is a 1,000-litre tank. Behind me, I've got, ironically, our first saltwater tank, which is a 130-litre sort of all-in-one concept, so no sump beneath it. It's got a rear filtration section. We've still got that on our kitchen bench, and that was kind of the catalyst for having multiple tanks. In that was our first tank, and I'd always thought once I set up this big custom one behind me that would shut that down. And once it was set up and running, and I said, "All right, it's time to shut this tank down." And my wife asked where we were going to put the clownfish out of that tank. She's like, "Oh, when will you move them across?" And I said, "Oh, no, I'm going to go, fancy clownfish in the big tank." So these basic Ocellaris clownfish that they're not designer breeds. They're your standard wild caught Ocellaris. I'm like, "I'll sell them or give them to someone." And she's like, "Oh, you can't. They're part of the family now. You got to keep them. So just don't shut the tank down. Leave it there." And I went, "Yeah, sure, that works for me." We've still got that original tank, and then I've got a couple of in the saltwater game we call frag tanks, which frags are it's a shorthand for fragment, which is basically a cutting of a coral. You take
coral, yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of tanks dedicated just to frags. I've got a tank that's solely a clownfish tank. It's just got 40 clownfish in it. And I've got a little, I think it's about a 70-litre tank that's, it classifies as a pico, I guess, but it's a little predator tank. So I've got a couple of fairly unique, very small sized predator fish, which is strange because normally predator fish, people think predators of like sharks and eels and things that can eat humans, but there are actually small predator fish that will eat, little shrimps and things like that.
Yep. Remind me, I do have a question about one type of saltwater fish. Chewy LTD. Chewy is a wealth of knowledge. He hails from Canada. He's asking, I have a question. What does your guest think of doing a biotope Red Sea aquarium?
Yeah, cool. So by biotope, you mean like you're talking about organisms only from the Red Sea? Is that
or this is he goes over my head sometimes, so he'll let us know. But while we're waiting for him to let us know if that's what he means, Rob Bull wanted to know what part of Australia are you from?
Yeah, so I'm all the way down south. I'm in Victoria. Most people are hopefully fairly familiar with Melbourne, which is about an hour from where I am today.
I thought you were from Sydney.
No. I mean, I get about a little bit. I've got quite a lot of aquarium friends in Sydney. Call it a lot more in Queensland. Very shortly, I'll be heading off to Perth later this year for a frag show I'm running over there. So I end up getting quite a few aquarium friends all around the country. But personally, I'm located down in Geelong, which is, if you're your international guests, they may have heard of the Great Ocean Road, like one of the wonders of the world.
The 12 Apostles.
Yeah, exactly. I'm probably a couple hours from the 12 Apostles. They're right at the end of the Ocean Road, but yeah, that's down my part of the world.
Well, Rob's from Bendigo, and I'm from the Yarra Valley, so we're all from Victoria. I thought you were from Sydney for some reason.
Yeah, I'm a local.
Chewy has said yes, including the Red Sea clownfish that is endemic to the Red Sea at Aqua.
Sure.
So yes.
Yeah, look, to be honest, funnily enough, in Australia, we've got this strange. I'm not sure. Well, it's probably the same with you guys with freshwater. So we can import a fish from all around the world because they can go through a quarantining process, and we can have fish from anywhere in the world here in our saltwater aquariums in Australia. With our corals, we cannot import corals. We can only have Australian corals, which is it's strange because you can quarantine a coral as much as anything else. So it's not unusual for reef aquarists here to have Australian biotope tanks, in that if you can only have Australian corals, then naturally we've got a pretty good selection of Australian fish here. Being, it's right on the Great Barrier Reef, we've got a huge percentage of the world's marine population here anyway. So a lot of people tend to run Australian biotope tanks anyway. That being said, the grass is always greener on the other side. People always want something that's it's the same way that in Australia people love Mercedes and BMW cars, and in Germany people love Chevs and Fords and stuff because they're not what's from there.
It's exotic.
Yeah, it's exotic, even though from its native land it's not exotic. But that's
It's standard.
it is what it is. So I guess I'm going a long-winded way of saying, I do actually. I love biotope tanks. Whilst this one behind me is far from it, whilst people say, oh, it's a beautiful-looking piece of the reef, it's the most unrealistic piece of the reef ever, in that it's got species of corals and fish all jammed into a 1,000-litre section that come from about 18 different parts of the world that would just never happen in the wild. But that's kind of the balance you play with aquarium keeping. Is in some instances you try to replicate nature, in other instances you try to hyper-centralize nature. But coming back to what the biotope tank, some of the nicest tanks I've seen are just completely selective just on having fish and corals from one particular region, keeping true to that. And nature's got a reason for making that work, and it doesn't surprise me when you see a tank set up that way that it does just work, because you're not fighting Mother Nature, you're working with it.
Yeah, absolutely. There was something I was thinking in the middle of that I was going to ask you. Are you on your mobile?
I am, yeah.
All right. Near towards the end of our chat, we need you to show us a bit more of the tank, because I think everyone.
Yeah, sure, man, I can do that.
Melbourne, hello. Melbourne from America has popped in. Where are we? Michael Thornley is also from Victoria as well. So there's another one that I just forgot. I was going to ask that, because that's what I was thinking. Is for some reason I had in my head that you were a Sydney sider, but now I stand corrected. And
so good, man.
Probably the first, I don't know if he's still here, Aquariums Down Under. He mentioned your channel and said, you got to check it out. And you just so happened to walk into one of my local fish stores that week, and that was in Bundoora.
Oh, yeah, cool.
What are they called? I think it's Lifestyle Aquarium or something like that.
Yeah.
So you did a little bit of a series where you toured around all the different fish stores. So how many stores have you done videos on?
Yeah, sure. Geez, I lost count of how many I did in Victoria. Probably 14, 15 different stores in Victoria alone, and then you add on to that another maybe 10 in Sydney and another 9 or 10 in Queensland. I will be going to Newcastle, so just a bit south of Sydney soon, to do a frag show there. And the place that's hosting the show have 6 stores, so I'll try to get to as many of those as I can. They're a pet store, I guess, not just an aquarium. So
yeah,
you got to sort of take that on board. But they've still got dedicated for my interest and for my viewers' interest. They got dedicated marine sections as well as freshwater, so that's always cool. And in December I'm heading over to Perth, which I've been to Perth a few times for racing, but in fairness, I'd fly in and I'd race the weekend and fly home. So I'm really looking forward to spending 2/3 of the week over there, just seeing people's fish tanks, seeing some of the local stores there, checking out some of the cool collectors and wholesalers there are over there, because the stuff that they collect on the West Coast is like, it may as well come from another planet over on the East Coast here, because some of the corals they get are just completely different over here, and it's just really cool to see.
Absolutely. You've just blown Melbourne's mind. We didn't realise that Aussies had reef tanks.
Why wouldn't we? I mean, we got access to some incredible stuff.
Jay's Better Room, welcome to the stream. Otter Creek Aquatics, Kendall, how are you? Kendall and I did a video a while ago. He's from Indianapolis. All I know is the 49ers beat your team in round one. So, Chewy has another question. What is your guest's thought about keeping the blue ring octopus?
Yeah, blue ring octopus. To be honest, it's not something I'd ever keep. I say that I did mention that I've got a predator tank, but octopus full stop or octopi, in my humble opinion, they're just too intelligent, and I feel like keeping them in an aquarium, almost regardless of the size. I mean, unless you've got a public aquarium size where it's like 20,000, 60,000 liters, or like 1,000 gallons or something for our American viewers. Unless you're getting to that size, I just think they're too smart of a creature to keep at a home aquarium.
Again,
that's before you even get to the whole dangers of the blue ring octopus. Octopus themselves, just full stop. In my opinion, just too smart to keep in a glass box.
Yeah, definitely. I'm probably with you on that. Aussie Fish Adventures just rocked up. Josh from Ballarat as well.
Hey, Josh.
Good to see you. Exotic Fishes, hello. Now, Aquariums Down Under was telling me about is it called? What's the show that you're talking about? You're going to Perth, and are you running a show, or are you part of a show?
Yeah. So I run these shows. They're called Frag Stock.
That's what I was going to say. Reef Stock, and I'm like, don't say it wrong. That's it.
Reef Stock's the I guess the inspiration behind Frag Stock. Reef Stock is the show that's run by American Jake Adams, probably one of the largest, at least saltwater YouTubers, behind probably Coral Fish 12G. Yeah, Jake runs a pretty successful show in America. I think he runs one in Abu Dhabi, and runs one in Sydney once a year as well. And it's pretty cool. I've gone to each one, really enjoyed them. And each time I've gone there, I've just heard the community sort of say, well, why isn't it going to be in Queensland this time? Or why can't it be in Melbourne? Or why does it have to always be there? Why can't they ever come to our state? So I went, there's an opening in the market here. Let's run a smaller scale frag show where we can get hobbyists rather than the collectors. Hobbyists trying to just keep the industry going, try to keep the interest up, also try to keep things a bit more social. There's in the advent of, I mean, I speak a bit out of school here. I'm an IT nerd, but in the age of Facebook and online communities, people get pretty brave behind screens and keyboards, and might sort of throw a bit of shade at people that they wouldn't normally do in person. So trying to get people together in a room just to talk about a hobby they all enjoy, it helped break down some of those barriers. So the whole concept of Frag Stock was to do it actually, rather than do it at a third-party location, was to actually do it at a local fish shop, and work in. So the local fish shop got a good deal out of it. Any of the sponsors, suppliers, wholesalers that got involved got a good deal out of it. And of course, the hobbyists come along and sell their corals, or they can come along and buy without any sort of cover charge. And it's been, I say it's been super successful. I ran one in Sydney earlier this year. We had about 550 people come to it, which is, if you've ever been to a fish shop and you've had 550 people there, like we had a line around the block. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
It was pretty cool. So we've done one in Melbourne, we've done one in Sydney, we've done one in Brisbane. We've got Newcastle coming up in November, and Perth in December. Granted, none of them have been as big as Sydney. Sydney was huge, but we've had a minimum of 100 people at each of the others. And like I said, 100 people at a fish store is a lot of people. And it's just a really cool, relaxed night. People are having a laugh, having a good time. People selling corals, end up trading things. Everyone gets a good deal. Everyone gets a bargain. It just works out really well. Personally, it's a humongous amount of work for me with no payoff. I take no money out of it at all. I try to funnel all of the funds back into the store and into the hobbyists. But it's led to some other things. I've now got a commercial size event coming up in Melbourne next year, which is not just marine, it's also freshwater. It's aquariums full stop. That event's going to be well, it is called Splash. So if you have a look on Facebook after this, have a look for Splash Expo Australia. It's going to be the largest aquarium show in Australia, and it will be huge. It's at Melbourne Showgrounds, end of February, start of March, and it's just going to be massive. You wouldn't want to miss it.
Actually, Dr. Black, while Sam mentions that as a moderator, are you able to find Splash and give us a link to Facebook on there? And yeah, I recommend everyone checks it out. Exotic Fishes. This is Parkers Reef, or Sam from Parkers Reef. He's an Aussie fish tuber as well, just like a lot of the people that are already here, and focusing mainly on saltwater. And you just telling me that about setting up these sorts of events. There you go, Dr. Black's just put it up. So
thank you.
Hang on, that's the channel. We want to find Splash on Facebook. You just telling me about all of that stuff. I'm glad that we're having a chat now, because that is exactly what I want to do with the freshwater hobby. And I never thought about the whole idea of actually doing it in a local aquarium. Instead of, I kind of thought about finding a location and then trying to get all the aquariums to work together and to sort of, rather than work against each other, realize that there's specialist stores. So, from a broader perspective, maybe it's like you have a couple saltwater stores, and then you have some African cichlid stores, and you have nano tank stores, aquascape stores. And then everyone, if you go to my local aquarium, is 15 minutes away, and it specializes in cichlids. And then the next one over has some monster fish. Then the next one over has shrimp and nano fish and that sort of stuff. That they're not really competing with each other. They should be helping each other. And to come together in a place like that, perfect example. Your wife seems to like the hobby too, but she might like something that, let's do this, and you're like, oh, let's do that, and then you've got two customers then.
Absolutely, it's. And look, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of stores out there that are complementing each other, but there's a whole heap that are just butting heads and competing against each other. And unfortunately, when they compete against each other, they just normally end up bringing each other down rather than stepping each other up.
I don't know about you, but when they do that as well, like, I start feeling uncomfortable, like, because I want to thrive and support them as well. But once one starts saying this about the other, you start going, I don't want to be involved in that. Like, you don't.
Personally, I think you're at a good fish store when you ask them about a product or an item, and they say, yeah, I've got some, but if you go 10 minutes down the road, they've got some better ones in, or they're better price, or that's their specialty. When someone says that, I'm like, these guys they're in it for the right reasons. Like, they could sell me something that was subpar or cost more or whatnot, but they recognize that they're not going to lose me. They're not going to lose me as a customer. In fact, they're going to gain more respect if they get me the right quality product. And exactly. Like I said, thankfully, some stores are doing that, but the more we can get on board with that, the better. And the local fish stores, it's almost a dying breed at the moment. And as soon as the local fish stores all close, the hobby's done as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I mean, I've worked in consumer electronics, so there's sometimes we don't stock a brand or the specific item that. I managed the Dick Smith store, worked at JB, worked at Clyde Peters. So sometimes you would go, hey, I know what you're after. They do that. They specialize in that. We specialize in this, so I can help you from this perspective. So a few people worried about some of the words they're writing, because there's a few people yelling at they've subscribed to you. So you've got a few new fans already. That's awesome.
I appreciate it, guys. That means a lot. Thank you.
Now, I'm not ignoring your aquariums down under. Can you ask Sam if he will do a video on Chad Chatfield's tank when he comes to Perth?
Yeah, look, it's one that I absolutely want to. There's a few tanks in Perth that I absolutely want to see. Chad's is one of them. Uli's is another. They've got a couple of just mind-blowing reef tanks, and I guess I'm greasing the wheels to make sure I can get my foot in the door, because it can be daunting. Not everyone wants me to come around with my video gear and step up in front of their tank and ask them 1,000 questions about their fish tank. People who get fairly self-conscious about it, and I can tell you now, everyone always thinks their aquarium is not up to spec, when everyone's is so incredibly up to spec. It's same problem that I face. Everyone doesn't see their own tank for the beauty that it is, and even if it's even if it's not where you want it to be, there's still some things that you've got or doing or some perspective or something that so many other people can learn from. And even if they're learning what you did that was a mistake, you're still helping other people. So yeah, Chad's is one that I definitely want to see when I get over to Perth, and I'll be sure to hit him up and make sure I can get an invite into his house.
No, that's awesome. And Dr. Black has just put the Splash Expo Australia link in the chat. So everyone jump on and like. What do you do on Facebook? I'm new to Facebook. There's you. I can see you on.
Yeah, make sure you follow the Splash.
Follow, that's it.
I'd really appreciate the freshwater guys getting on there and following it. I've got a fairly decent audience in the saltwater scene, and trying to set up something like Splash where we're trying to encompass freshwater and saltwater. I'm finding no trouble at all getting saltwater brands and wholesalers, distributors, and people involved in stores even. But I really want to make this an all-encompassing aquarium show, and that just obviously does not happen without freshwater. And in my opinion, the freshwater scene is probably 10 to 15 times, maybe more, the size of saltwater. And as far as I can see, you guys don't really have. We're a little bit lucky. At least we have reef stock in Australia, but it's only the one show. And then I've done a couple of these smaller ones with frag stock, but I haven't seen any. And I might have just missed it, but I haven't seen any decent commercial size aquarium show for freshwater.
You haven't missed it, and that's
yeah.
We need to do it. It
seems blindingly obvious that there needs to be one. I mean, it's a hobby that so many people are involved in, and there's not an expo where you can go and meet other people. You can see new products. You can get a good deal on something. You can interact with other stores or brands or wholesalers or something that you wouldn't have before. It just seems like a blindingly large hole that's been missed. So I'm really excited to bring it to well, not just Australia, but Melbourne. And yeah, by all means, guys, I'm not an event planner, but I'm sort of finding my way with it. And this shows it's going to be big. Like it's at a huge venue at the Melbourne Showgrounds, and yeah, it's $5 entry, so it's basically free. And in fact, if our insurance policy would have let me do it for free, it would have been free entry. But there was all sorts of caveats around. If it's free entry, then you can't tell whether someone willingly entered the show. So we had to put a minimum $5 entry fee on it. So it's $5. It's an absolutely family-focused event. We're really trying to target the show to getting new people into aquarium keeping. I find that most of the shows, particularly in the reefing scene anyway, are really targeted at those at the upper echelons of reef keeping, which is a pretty small section of the market, and we're trying to cater to those. It doesn't make sense to me when we've got probably 5 times the number of people leaving the hobby a day as there are new people joining the hobby. We've got to cater to these new guys and girls, and we've got to try and make it a more interesting prospect, show people that it's not as complex as it was 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. It's not as expensive. It doesn't smell. It can be quite an attractive hobby. It could really be a living piece of art in your home. So that's the angle we're going for the show, and so far so good. I must admit, I haven't really begun marketing to the consumer yet. We just wanted to fill out the vendor spaces, which I've got all but there now. We've got some big brands. We've got some international people coming out for it. I can say at this stage we're going to have people from ADA in Japan coming out for aquascaping. We've got people from Poland from Aqua coming out. We've got some big people coming out to these shows. So if you're anywhere in Australia, I'd highly recommend keeping that weekend free and getting down to Melbourne.
Well, I'm still here. That thing was making me hot, that light.
What you get from using aquarium lights?
Me and Sam, before we're getting ready, I'm like, I need the light to back up because I'm really dark. And I put a 4-foot fish tank light in front of me and it's getting hot. All the information you're giving us right now and talking about, I'm going to put my hand up. We've got you on Instagram. We'll have another chat because I put my hand up to help you. And that's my goal. That's what I want to do with Aquamate. It's fun doing the channel and reaching out and meeting all these people. Like Big Easy's just popped in. Max is from Melbourne. Big Easy's from, I forget which state, but America. It's crazy. Rob Bull's just saying he's putting his hand up. He wants to help out as well. So And GRB Aquatics, hello. What date is this?
So it'll be next year in 2020. Ironically, must be a leap year because it's on the 29th of February and the 1st of March.
Awesome.
So that's a Saturday, Sunday at Melbourne Showgrounds. It's in a large air-conditioned pavilion there. It is actually the same weekend. There's probably some crossover here as well, but the same weekend as the reptile show at the Melbourne Showgrounds. So for anyone out there that keeps frogs as well, or snakes or something like that, or lizards, they've had a show that's ran there for the last, I think, 11, maybe 12 years, and they get a couple of thousand people there. We're working with the organisers of that show to make sure that if you're paid entry to their show, you can get entry to our show for free. We want to get as many of those couple thousand people into our show as well. But we're hoping to pull a crowd of maybe 10,000 people. So it's going to be a big event.
That's insane. So $5, there's no reason not to go. I love all the Aussie fish tubers and everyone else, but Dr. Black 66 and Thirsty Rabbit, who's not here, we do a stream together on Sunday mornings. So we do it at 11 o'clock our time, which reaches the other side of the world. And that's sort of like the Australians, that's our little bit to join up with them and come and all have a laugh together. It's Saturday night for them, so they can all kind of let their hair down a little. And we have a really good time, but they're two people, so both from New South Wales, but northern New South Wales. So I'm pretty sure that they would be absolutely keen to come down for an event like that as well. So we can probably bring some people from interstate. So Prawn-a-Lot's from Adelaide, another one. So this is really cool. This is the sort of thing that we've all been saying we'd really love to do. I've embarrassingly emailed George, Coral 12G, and said, how are you doing what you're doing, and how did we do something like that in Australia? And it's funny because the saltwater people are already doing. We knew that was sort of going on, but it's not until we're having a chat right now that you kind of click and go, team up. I'm sure that it can still be what it is for you now, and that if we had something on the side that we could try and bring some suppliers forward for, freshwater, that it would still be a hit. And probably, as you kind of said before, you really want to get to the beginners. You want to inspire people to get into the aquarium hobby. And some people get taken back by saltwater. I've been keeping fish for 25 years. I've never kept a saltwater tank. I will keep one day, and one day soon. But freshwater is real simple. Jump in, start a freshwater, see how you go with it, and then sort of progress to saltwater, I feel. I have a great place there, I think.
Yeah, look, to be honest, saltwater is not what it used to be a few years ago. Saltwater, the wealth of information out there now, and the equipment and knowledge or wisdom, I guess, out there can make it actually pretty simple. You're just going to have realistic sort of goals in mind. There's no difference of a freshwater tank. You can't. I guess where the trap people fall into with saltwater is they see 50 different tanks and they pick one thing they like from each tank and go, well, I want to put that all into one. Same with freshwater. It just doesn't happen that way. You can't add, this fish to that fish. They'll eat each other, or they'll do this, or have aggression, or you can't have plants because that fish will eat the plants. It's exactly the same with saltwater. Personally, I feel like the gap between the two has merged a little bit, and I feel like freshwater's not what freshwater was a few years ago. Freshwater's become, there's absolutely scope for it to become fairly specialized. And I feel like I know some people that have both tanks and some like high-end freshwater planted tanks, and they say that their freshwater tank is 2 or 3 times the amount of work their reef tank is. It's more about showcasing. The splash is really about showcasing the hobby to people and giving them the opportunity to meet with people that can help them on their journey. I want to try and, as ironic as it is being a YouTuber, I want to try and remove or abolish the gap between people trusting what they see online and then saying, well, that's what I need to do because they're sort of following one source. I want them to get in touch with their local fish shop. I want them to build that relationship, that connection, have the store that knows what they're doing, what they're trying to achieve, and working with them rather than just selling things to them. And I feel like Splash is a good opportunity for people to meet stores in their area and get a feel for who's gonna make it a living piece of art in their room rather than something that they put towels over when guests come over.
Yeah, I think what I really like about the whole idea is like fantastic, but YouTube's that really, really great resource that a brand new person and the most experienced person can go to an event like this. And this is why I think Aqua does such a great job, that they have a YouTube booth and there's people there that you go, I've seen their tanks. I know, like I've seen them set that up, and that's what I want to do. I'm going to go have a chat with them. And it's there as well afterwards. So after the event, you don't feel like, all right, I'm out there on my own now, just trying it. There's this whole community, and that's where the Fish Fam has become really important to us. I mean, I might be reading this wrong, Daniel, but he's saying his favourite place is here with us. So he likes coming to these streams more than, you know, some of the, I don't know what's going on he's actually in Scotland, or right now he's in holidaying somewhere. And where are you? In Cyprus. Jeez.
Doesn't sound too bad.
But that's where I think, yeah, exactly what you're doing already, to add in the freshwater. Freshwater is interesting as well. I have 9 tanks, and there's only about 2 tanks could be compatible with each other. Another 2 could be compatible with each other. This one's not compatible with any of the others. One's goldfish, so that's not compatible with any of the others. I'm brand new to aquascaping or you know, trying to get right into it. So I'm trying to do a little tank, just a planter tank at the moment, that it's not even ready for fish. And then there's like another tank that I have that's completely self-sustainable, no water changes, no nothing, shrimp, endless, almond leaves, plants growing. It just looks after itself. And that one I'm really proud of. It's not the prettiest tank, but it's amazing that you can get to that level, and it's so different.
The beauty is all in the eye of the beholder, and it's absolutely what I want to do at Splash, is showcase all of these different types of aquariums and approaches, because what I might think looks awesome or what I think looks terrible could be the complete opposite to someone else. And if you try to showcase one type of tank to someone new looking to get into aquariums, some people are going to be blown away by planted tanks. Some people are going to think goldfish are the best thing under the sun. That's cool, no dramas. But if they're purely interested in goldfish, the last thing I want to do is show them a planted tank or a reef tank. It's pointless. So yeah, we want to try and get that real all-encompassing method. And you mentioned about Aqua and the shows that George put on. I take absolutely no shame in saying we're absolutely copying his model. What we're seeing George do, there's no use trying to reinvent the wheel. What he does is perfect, and it is exactly what we need. We're we're inspired down to the level of, we're going to do the same sort of blacklit interactive style entrance where they've got like all those, you know, jellyfish themed artwork and stuff all blacklit up. We're going to go with that style of entrance as well. You mentioned about the YouTuber booth there. It's not something I had planned yet, but it was always in the back of my mind. And now that I've had the opportunity to chat to you guys, it's something I'd absolutely love to do. I'd love to have a section where we can have you guys base for the weekend. People can meet you there, talk to you there. That way, personally, that helps the show get a bit more exposure, because you guys will all be there probably doing live streams or videos on the show and just helping build up the hype. So, I mean, it all helps keep the machine moving, you know. I
think it'd like what I notice I do a lot, because I follow a lot of people over in America that they go to Aqua and then they live stream like their experience. Like they make 5 videos in a row every day, because they're like, oh, we're getting ready, and then we're getting there, and then there's the line, and then they show some footage. Like if we were doing that back out to the world, they'd be like, these Aussies have got, look what they're doing. Hey, we want to get involved too. And that's where I think it can really grow as well. And absolutely. I think there's definitely people right here, right in this stream that that's their dream. They're like, I love what I'm doing, and I'd love to get it out there more, and I'd love to be with like-minded people.
Well, let's make it happen.
Oh, I'm dead keen. No, I'm really glad that we've had a chat. Before we go,
sure.
I think we need to have a look at that tank behind you, because everybody's drooling.
Yeah, sure. Let me pick up. I got the camera and a gimbal here, but I'll just try to. Let me just move this chair out of the way. I'll try to pan along it so you can get a decent view. But yeah, check out the video that was put in the links. I go into some pretty in-depth detail there. I've even got recently bought a new camera, a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, which does really nice 4K footage. So I did a 4K slider 5-minute video of this tank, just so the camera sort of panning back and forth. And if you can hook up YouTube to your TV or something and get that 4K view, it really shows up quite well. And what else can I show you? You want to see more tanks? Or?
Yeah, we can have a look at more tanks. I love that tank. I've just posted a link for the 44-minute overview again, because we did that earlier. Just reading. I love your tank and how you decorated that. Special 1, number 2. I've had some dwarf cichlids that I'm raising some fire right now, and yeah, they're wonderful. Monica, I could send you if I could send you some. I would. What gimbal do you use?
This is a Zhiyun Smooth 4. It's a little bit awkward at the moment because I've got it on the self-view camera, so
no, that's
it's
cool.
a little bit awkward to handle. But this is my original tank. This is what they call it's a Red Sea Max is the brand. It's a 130-litre tank. This tank's now just about 7 years old, and it doesn't look the best on camera right now because it's fairly blue in its lights, but I do nothing to this tank. Absolutely nothing. It is completely self-sufficient now. I say that in that it does have, if I can, put that camera back. If I can show you here, I've got automatic water change coming in and out of this tank. And
oh, wow.
That's literally all it does. It gets 20 litres in and out of this tank each day, and that's all it needs to completely look after itself.
It looks amazing. Dr. Black saying that I've got some gimbal envy. I bought a DJI gimbal in June. Actually, I went up to the Great Barrier Reef. So I did a video on that a couple months ago. June, July.
Yeah,
July.
Nice.
And now I just take the gimbal everywhere. I'm like, it's just so much smoother. Works so well.
They're pretty cool.
Kendall was just saying, can you turn it off? You're making my pockets heavy.
It's YouTube life. You got to do this. This is the first of one of my frag tanks. So this is I'll try and get it better on camera there. The lights are all off now, but it's a about a 280-litre tank, which is just coral frags. And
so what's the dimensions on that?
This is a 2.5 by 2.5 foot tank, and I think it's just over a foot high, so it's fairly narrow, fairly shallow, I should say.
Yeah.
I'll try to get it better. Give you a rough idea of the dimensions there.
And so what that is a serious light up above, I'm assuming, to help expedite the growth of the frags.
Yeah, these are metal halides, so they're really high power lights. This one's 250 watt. Yeah, it runs a German bulb, which is they call them radium. They're 20,000 Kelvin, so they're fairly crisp white / blue white. This tank here, this is my clown tank. The lights are off on it as well, but you can see.
Oh wow! I love a clown tank with a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. These guys all came in as they're all brothers and sisters. They all came in as one clutch. So I got them all about the size of they're about the size of a Tic Tac each when I got them. And yeah, this tank's dedicated just to them and that lemon peel in there. And that's only because he came out of another tank because he was being a pain. But
so how many do they have in a clutch? Because are they? Forgive me if I'm wrong. I thought clowns were hard to breed in Australia.
Clowns are actually pretty easy to breed.
Okay.
The only difficulty with them is feeding them. The clowns breed really readily. Getting appropriate food into the babies is pretty difficult. You need multiple tanks to isolate them out, which most don't do. So normally when clowns breed, they just become live food. But yeah, I bought those from a breeder and got just the one clutch. Well, I got 40 clowns from the one clutch. And yeah, I've lost about 3 or 4 just when they got to, I guess, around adolescence, when they were sort of working at the pecking order. 'Cause I'm not sure if you know, with clownfish, they're basically all born males, and then they start to form a bit of dominance, and then the bigger ones become female. So when they get to that age,
I did learn that, and actually, Otter Creek's probably listening. He said, "Do the clowns interbreed?" And that's probably leads into that as well.
yeah. So these guys, I haven't actually seen any breeding of these guys yet. They're still relatively juvenile. There's a couple in there that have.
Do they need an enemy to breed? Do they need the anemone to then go, that's our home, and then we're okay to?
No, clownfish are, without being disrespectful to them, they're pretty stupid. They will call anything a home. If you've got like a magnet cleaner in the tank, they'll host that.
I love that.
So yeah, like whilst an anemone's great, it's absolutely not needed.
So prawn or not? Prawn. Where is there an anemone?
Yeah, the anemone. It's a tricky word, but
yeah, that's correct. So the whole thing with clownfish is that you have to have they're all born male, yeah, and then a female gets dominant, and then the male. I thought the male they turn into female, and then the males are the ones that get dominated, and they're under constant stress. So that keeps them male, and the female then takes over. And then if the female dies, and then they take over another fish, they become a female.
They can do, yeah.
That's what I've learned recently, but
basically the boss is the female. Is pretty much it. One thing
just like real life, people.
This is a calendar that comes out from Aqua in Poland each year. I love them because they use so many of my pictures.
Oh, that's so you do photography as well?
Yeah, photography. I got into photography completely through fish tanks. I never had a camera really before having a fish tank, and just started taking pictures with phones and stuff, and was like, yeah, I got to do better than that. And saw some pictures that some people were getting from overseas, and even some in Australia, and I'm like, just basically decided I got to step up my game. And to be honest, it probably elevated me quicker than YouTube did. I got to the point where I was getting you follow some of my photos on Insta there. I get the opportunity now to even fly interstate to take photos of other people's tanks and fish. I went to Queensland recently to help a store get a handle of how their camera so that they can take better pictures for their Facebook site. So
what is your Instagram for everybody out there?
Yeah, good question. I think it's Parkers Reefs.
Yeah, it's Parkers
Reefs. Yeah. I must admit, I'm fairly new to Instagram. I'm old. I don't know how social media works, but
there's some amazing pictures there, and it's funny. I'm not a photographer or anything like that, and I have jumped onto Instagram and taken a few photos, and I mean, I've got 100 photos on there, and maybe 4 or 5 have completely blown me away. I'm like, wow, how did I do that? Lots of filters. But it is so much fun to do. What I used to do when I was trying to be consistent was do one video a week, do one live stream every fortnight with Dr. Black and Thirsty Rabbit, and try and do probably 1 or 2 photos on Instagram. And that kind of kept things rolling along really nicely. But different topics, different ideas, like even just like right now, trying to start the idea of having interviews with different Aussies in the fish keeping business, like straight away, you've opened up about a whole new thing that all of us are interested in. And it's kind of, like now that's going to be a bit of a focus. And I think it's hard when you limit yourself and try and you want to do, on Thursday, 7 o'clock, bang, we're doing a stream.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of learning that as well. Did he say why his name is Parkers Reef? Yeah, why is it? I know the answer, but yeah.
Sure, yeah. So my last name's Parker. I'm Sam Parker. So I just thought Sam's Reef was a bit plain, so I went with Parker's Reef. Ironically, Parker's not that common of a first name or a given name in Australia, but it seems to be in America. So a lot of my YouTube followers think that my first name's Parker, but that's fine. They can call me that. I wear my surname with a badge of honor, so you can call me Parker. It's fine.
One of my good mates just had two. They've got a son named Parker, and he's 6. And then they've just had another boy, and his name's Lincoln. And I'm like, do they realize they've got Lincoln Parker? Lincoln.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's really bizarre. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're right, man. I was just going to show you. This is a tank that I'm doing a video series on now, and it's called the Idiot Proof Reef Tank. I'm about 4 or 5 videos into this at the moment now, and the whole purpose of that tank is to show people the absolute easiest way to set up a reef tank. I don't make excuses. It's not the cheapest way. It's not the most expensive way either, but it's just meant to be the easiest way. So it's trying to remove a lot of the stigma around reef tanks being really complicated and really difficult. So there's new products and equipment and just knowledge out there now that makes reef keeping a lot easier. So I've set up this tank just to take people through the journey of setting up a brand new tank using this new idiot-proof process. And it's definitely aimed at people that are getting into reef keeping. So yeah, if it's something that you've been curious about before, I highly recommend following that series on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. Thirsty Rabbit's in the house. Thirsty Rabbit has 21 tanks and
unbelievable.
He has something like 12 Oscar fish now, is it? I think he had 10, but he's just picked up 2 more.
Picked up a couple more.
Perth Cichlids has 75 fish tanks.
Wow.
And
I assume when you've got 75 that you're breeding though, yeah?
He is. He's breeding a lot of the African cichlids. That's what I call it now. Someone just told me to check Zen Ginger's question, but I can't find it.
To check which question, sorry?
Zen Ginger asked a question, but I can't find where it is. If you can write it again, Zen Ginger, I'll look out for it. Now, one aquarium I wanted to ask you, did you visit nature aquariums in Mont Albert?
Yes, I have a couple of times. Yeah.
Max S has he works there now, and
cool.
Max is a huge wealth of knowledge, and he and I recently picked up we got some, I'm going to say the word, pseudo-moguls. Different people pronounce it differently, but we got some honey blue eyes, which are Australian native fish, and they're endangered. So it's kind of opened like this whole new world for me, and Max seems to be really intertwined with what's going on in Melbourne when it comes to fish keeping, and invited me along, and we went to an auction a couple of weeks ago in Nunawading.
Yep.
And apparently there was one last weekend in Tullamarine. And we walked into this fish auction, and I thought, there'll be about 20 nerds just sitting here like, I'll buy that fish. There's 140 people there.
Wow.
And they had scheduled it for 3 hours, thinking we'll sell enough stuff in 3 hours. I would have gone for at least 6 or 7 hours. There was just so much stuff, so many people. They were serving beers on the side and food and stuff. And I'm like, what? This is insane. I didn't know it would be like this. So I know that you're ages away, but that's something that is sort of happening.
I would love to come to one of those. I get jealous of some of my friends in Sydney because, as you'll know, in Victoria we can't have koi. But in Sydney, my friends have got koi ponds and they go to koi auctions. And man, I'm jealous. One, I love their koi ponds, but 2, the whole concept of a koi auction, I'm so jealous. I just want to be there. So if we have other fish auctions, granted they may be fresh or whatever, but still I'd love to come and cover one of those. I reckon people get a real kick out of that.
Absolutely. Like the hard part was sitting there going, oh, wow, I'd love to buy that. But you go, hang on. You got to have that restraint of going, don't know that much about that fish, so would I even be? I had a tank sitting there ready for anything that I decided to grab. But then you go, but what is it? It's 26 degrees. Its pH is like 7. What else do you need? What do you need to do and what does that fish want? But I'm the same with you with koi. That'd be amazing. You go up and go to a koi auction and then just be like, this is killing me. I can't take it.
I'd love a koi pond in the backyard, but the fines are a bit extreme, and I really don't have that much money. So, I just have to visit their ponds and check them out.
All right, I realised how forgiving is saltwater in comparison to fresh. Like if I miss a cleaning for a weekend, are things going to start dying?
Yeah, awesome question. That's
Just asked it 100 times. Yeah.
that entirely depends on the type of things you have in your saltwater tank. So to the untrained eye, one coral compared to another coral, they look almost the same. You wouldn't care one over the other so much. It's almost exactly the same with freshwater plants. Yet to the saltwater nerd, they'll know that this coral is really difficult to keep, and it's like $2,000, and this one you could throw it in a bucket and it'll live forever, and it's $2. But to anyone else outside of the hobby, they look the same, or they're exactly the same species, they're just different colors or something like that. Basically, that's what it comes down to with saltwater tanks. If you've got really hardy and basic corals, they can be so forgiving. It's just not ridiculous. And if you set your tank up to be as self-maintaining as possible, literally, I've got 7 tanks in this house. I don't do water changes on any of them because they're all automated. The top-off water's all automated, as in even the reservoir. A lot of the cleaning's automated. You can definitely set a tank up to be as hardy as you want. So you can make it as easy or as difficult as you want. And that's entirely the purpose of the idiot-proof reef tank, is that I'm showing people how easy it can be. And if you want to then venture into more difficult species, absolutely you can. But if you want a saltwater tank with a pair of clowns and an anemone and maybe 1 or 2 corals, you can do that with your eyes closed. In fact, your grandma could set up a tank. It's not difficult.
I love it. Everyone is just paying out on me for not asking that question earlier. There's a lot of funny comments there. Can you see the chat?
I can see some of the questions that come up, but I can't see the chat. No, but that's all right.
Oh, okay. So have you ever used StreamYard before?
I have not. This is my first experience.
So StreamYard's pretty simple, and I can just I can choose to like just grab someone's question and just chuck it up on the thing there.
Cool.
But there's a chat, maybe because you're on the phone, there's a chat rolling on the side of us, and then if you, obviously in YouTube, there's a whole bunch of chats there. So
cool.
I keep missing things, even though they're tagging me. I did have another question I wanted to ask before we sort of wrapped it up, but I can't remember what it was now. But it has been absolutely awesome.
Oh man, I've enjoyed it. It's been really good. Like I said, I'm really trying to branch out into this freshwater scene because it's so big and it's so foreign and exotic to me. So I'm really looking forward to doing some things in future, much like Splash, but not just Splash, just even social things where we can try to merge some of these freshwater and saltwater aquarium, keeping stuff together, and just grow the hobby basically. The bigger the hobby is, particularly down under, the better it is for all of us.
I reckon maybe you and I can do a bit of a collab, and we'll set up a freshwater tank for you and set up a saltwater tank for me.
Yeah, man, I'll be down for that for sure.
That would be good fun. And we'll focus on Splash, and then we'll do that. So Cornelot wants to know, he's going to watch that video on the Idiot Proof tank. He just wants to know how much would it cost in total to set something up like that.
A tank like that, on each of the videos, so I've done a video on what tank I picked, and then like what sand, what rock, what water I'm using, the heat of the light. In each video, I put forward some options where you can go for like the Rolls Royce, or you can go the old falling apart Toyota, and then I've explained why I picked the option in the middle. So again, you can make it almost as expensive or as cheap as you want. That tank, to be set up, by the time it's got a couple of clowns in it, maybe 1 or 2 corals, it'll probably owe me $800-900. So it's not the cheapest thing, but it will be. It's a high quality tank with good quality equipment in there, because it has been designed that your grandma could run it. So I haven't put something cheap in there that requires you to clean it every week or something like that. But yeah, there's concessions along the way. It depends on what your priority is. If hands off is the highest priority, you're going to pay more money. If cheap's your priority, you're going to have to do a little bit more work on it yourself. So I mean, there's things you can do. I wonder, there's probably someone out there, I haven't done it myself, but I'm sure someone out there's done a video series on the cheapest reef tank you can do, and there would be some pretty cheap reef tanks out there. I can assure you that.
It's a good idea for a video. They get a lot of views. I looked into it, and yeah, it didn't seem like it was too much more expensive. The light was probably the big factor, and not the fish, not the contents, but yes, as you just said, like being on top of the different, minerals and whatnot that you need to add, or if you have something that's automated. And I personally would go automated. I have different setups for different tanks to do water changes, and I'm not religious on it. I'm not like, it's been 7 days, I've got to go do it. I do it when I have time. And I think that I feel like salt water, if you don't do it when you've got time, and then as we were talking a bit earlier, there's just other variables that you just got to keep in. Perth Cichlid said he'll be at the Perth shows and he's free for an autograph. That's fantastic. GRB said we should both be congratulated because it's an awesome stream and an awesome audience. So thanks for the nice words. Max says, I believe Nature will, as in Nature Aquariums, will have a booth at Splash Expo, which is awesome. So hopefully we'll get some local shops there. That means Max will be there, and I know I will be there.
Nature's going to be one of our major sponsors. So they've got a real prominent location. They've got a large display. I think it's 6 by 9 meter section they've got. So it's like a 3-car garage size booth. Steve, the owner at Nature, has committed to going pretty much all out at the show. So
that's awesome.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
I'm trying to. Max is amazing. Max is pretty young. I don't know exactly how old you are, Max, but he's a young guy and he is really knowledgeable for his age. And he's in a lot of streams and he's talking to people in Hawaii and stuff, and they're talking about different sort of fish. And I've been listening to him, and then I went and met him, and I said, "You got to give me a tour of this place." Like one day when you're not working, because he works there on the weekends, that I can come in and I'm going to get him to do a tour of the store there and let him sort of talk instead of me ramble on. Thirsty Rabbit, you missed it before, but Sam has organised, where are we? Splash Expo Australia down in Melbourne on February 29 and March 1st next year. And you need to come down. So get organised.
Yeah, make it a social weekend. Come down and have a party.
Absolutely. I think, Monica, ever been to Australia? Fly over. And now Ginger also asked, how hard is it to keep seahorses? Have you ever kept seahorses?
No, I haven't kept seahorses. Not because they're difficult, because I find them a bit depressing. That's just a personal thing. They just always look really sad, and I don't know. They just don't sit well with me, but I've been tempted. Seahorses are actually pretty easy to keep. Their requirements are fairly minimal. In fact, in many ways, it's cheaper in that you don't need a really crazy light. You absolutely don't want a lot of flow. In fact, flow is really bad for them because they just can't swim all that well. So you can have a fairly basic tank. Probably the only thing you need to be really careful with seahorse is that they are really, really sensitive to temperature swings. So you really, depending on where you live or what the room's like where your tank is, but for long-term success with sea horses, you probably want to run a chiller on your tank just so that you keep your temperature stable regardless of whatever the weather is.
It was amazing, actually, down in Launceston. So they maybe about 20 years ago, they set up the seahorse. I can't remember what it's officially called, but it was a seahorse breeding project that they set up down there. And my dad, I don't know if you know Gippsland that well. My dad moved down to Cooker, if you're there. My dad's been popping around in the chat. He moved down to a little town called Tura, which is down near Wilson's Promontory. Okay. And I think it was Port Wilson. They were going to set up the seahorse breeding project down there, and all the locals fought it off. And like this tiny little town with nothing really going on, and they could have had like this cool thing that's, good for the environment. Yeah, and then they fought it off, and then it ended up going to Launceston, and then me and my old man went down to Tassie, and we went there, and It was incredible, and it's, I don't know, blow your mind. I think going there and seeing what they're trying to do to just help rejuvenate them in the wild as well. I remember one of the questions I was going to ask you a little while ago. One of the most fascinating, what are they called? Can't think of the word when you've got two organisms that live.
Symbiotic relationship.
Symbiotic, that's the word I'm looking for. So you already know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah. Look, there's a few examples. I mean, everyone knows the clownfish and the anemones. And then two of them work together.
Pistol shrimp and the goby.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, pistol shrimp goby combos. Cool,
that is what if I ever do a saltwater tank, I want those guys and just a couple of fish. And then
they're pretty cool.
Found them down here. It's like $250 for a pair. But have you ever had them?
I haven't, mainly because some of the fish I like to keep would smash the little shrimp. But if you're keen on pistol shrimp and goby pairs, you can start about the $250 range, and they escalate from there. You can get some crazy colored ones that can be a couple of $1,000. So
there was no colors involved in these guys, and there was just watching them that just on guard, cool. And the other guys working for him the whole time. It was, that's something. Trying to think of a freshwater example that's similar.
I'm sure you guys would have heaps.
There would be heaps, but it probably I just can't think.
May not come to mind, yeah.
Thirsty Dr. Black, help me out. Are there any symbiotic relationships in freshwater? Max S just said, there is an awesome seahorse farm down there in Tassie, which is what we were talking about. I went there a couple of years ago, and it's an amazing place. Before I was into fish, I think that's a big player in my interest in fish.
Yeah, nice. The ironic thing is that it's not that complicated to breed seahorses. I say it's not that complicated. That's being disrespectful. It's
they only give birth. Males give birth to like 100,000 seahorses at a time.
Yeah. Like people can get them to at least breed. Raising them's a bit like the clownfish. Breeding is the easy part. Raising them's a lot harder. So it's a weird thing that they are. Some species of them are so low in numbers in the wild when you've got something that breeds so easily. But that's nature.
Archerfish and bugs. I'm pretty sure the bugs just are food.
Yeah, that's a strange symbiotic relationship. One's higher in the food chain.
Cold beer and a hot day. Yes, that's a symbiotic relationship.
That's always good.
All right. I've kept you for way longer than I told you I was going to keep you for. I really appreciate you stopping by.
Good, thank you.
I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. There's a few other examples, but they're all saltwater, I'm pretty sure. No, I'm just reading Josh's comment. I suppose that doesn't count. Thank you, everyone. Remember to smash the like button. Appreciate you. Definitely check out Sam's channel. I know, where are we here? I'll put up that video link again so that everyone's got it. And I appreciate you guys for subscribing and supporting Sam. And I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a bit more of you in the future, and especially at Splash. And look forward to doing some work together. But until then, good night to the Aussies. Good morning to everyone up north. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.